Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of Iblis Manifestations. As you can see, this is going to be one of the solo episodes, but I decided to do this one in a bit of a different format because I feel like it will stand its own ground compared to a lot of the other stuff that I've got going on this podcast. Today, or whenever you get to hear this, I'm mainly going to be talking about the Serpent's Gaze. That is, of course, the song by Trivax, which we've got coming up very soon. And it's the song itself has already been released, I guess, and I feel that it's very important for me to bring some kind of, I guess, closure to this chapter of my own life. But I also feel that even though many other artists would perhaps avoid doing something like this, I feel that I am really eager to actually share and disclose some of this with you. And it's not so much that I want to necessarily even connect with anything in particular. It's just that I feel that it is part of my responsibility and duty to I guess add this information out there purely just to complete the release of the song. And that's what I mean when I say closure, because I think it's a song that it isn't simply defined by just, I don't know, a musical release. I feel like having the entire full story perhaps might be beneficial for those who are really interested in consuming it for what it is. And of course, I'm going to be talking a lot about Trivax and things of what we do in general, and some of my own personal trials and tribulations, which I have been through, of course. As always, thank you all very, very much for joining me on this podcast, and I hope that you will enjoy what I have to share with you today. So as always, much gratitude for the support of the podcast, but of course, absolutely more so the support of Trivax and everything that you guys have, all of the energy that a lot of you have put towards us, and the attention and the feedback. That's really cool to see. You know, when I compose music, it always comes very much from a very selfish point of view. In that, I say selfish. It's in that it's very, I should say, it has no regards for the feedback that it might receive, and it's just something that it needs to happen and it needs to manifest into reality. And I don't sit around and think of the external what ifs, if that makes any sense, whenever I am creating and composing music, and that only really sort of occurs afterwards. But some songs, like the case of this one, which I'm about to talk about, they have no regards for anything. They just come into existence, and that's just it. And magic happens, really. With that in mind, thank you all for the support that you have shown the band and the song and the EP, and we do very much appreciate it. Obviously, there's a lot more on the way too, but I feel like this is a very special time to take a moment to delve into things. So anyway, I feel like I'm kind of going in circles. So I'm actually going to start talking about what the fuck actually happened, how this song came to be. So I'm going to take you back to April 2017. That's right. It's actually that fucking old. That's, that's over 5 years ago, 5.5 years ago now, even longer than that. So, yeah, this in particular, as I have said on the podcast on a few occasions, was a very strange period in my life. In fact, I would say it was the most difficult in my life. I think there's something that was going on from midway of 2016 to midway 2017. I don't know exactly what it was, whether it was I don't know, whatever you want to call it, where I was at personally, my own belief systems, things of that nature, but also maybe even astrologically, things like that. I know not everyone who listens to the show believes in that, and I'm a very open-minded person. But there's a lot, whatever it was, there was a lot going on around that time that was just extremely unpleasant. And I feel like I aged about 20 years in that 1 year period. And obviously a lot of this was a product of my own doing. A lot of it was circumstances, long-term ones and short-term ones. It was just really hard, man. Without going into too much details, it was a very tough period in my life, and everything, just existence, felt like an uphill battle from what it was. And I should also put this out there that the first Trivax album, Sin, which I've talked about quite a lot, and how the initial release of it was a massive letdown, that came out November 2016. So that very much lands in that 1 year period, which I just mentioned. So, yeah, my living circumstances at this time were also quite peculiar in that I didn't really have a lot of space to myself. And of course, there's a lot of personal circumstances involved with that, which again, maybe I can shed more light on this later, but it's important for you to know that the situation that I was living in, it was a situation that I had zero ownership over, which really sucks, actually. And you can always be grateful if other people help you out, to have your own space and things like that, but it's just not a pleasant setting, and you can't really blame anyone for this thing but yourself. And in that situation, it was too complicated to be, for me to, like, yeah. So obviously, as an artist and as someone who always is just like, I always feel like I am throughout the entirety of my life, I'm gasping for air, mentally speaking, as well as physically too sometimes. And the thing of it is that I was very much feeling trapped in the situation that I was in, and I felt very much like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And whatever it was, whatever efforts that I felt like I had to make in order to reach a degree of freedom, or a state of freedom that I thought I was going to reach, which that I thought that this would happen from the release of the album, which was very naive thinking of me, even if it really was a groundbreaking album. That's not how life works. And, I was yet to fully understand the Saturnalian routines of this planet, of this world, I should say, before that. And I think I was just very impatient and very eager, and from that came lessons of disappointment, which were extremely crucial and valuable. Now, what happened in April 2017? So like I said, there were many chains of events in my life which led up to this event, or this particular time period, which were very alienating. I had some kind of a weird spiritual thing happening, where I don't know if I was under attack or that I had fallen into some kind of a trap at the time. It's very difficult to explain because there were multiple events that happened. One of which was the paranormal experience, which of course now you people know about, which I talked about on the first episode of the podcast. As I think I mentioned on there, I had reoccurring nightmares and very strange events that happened afterwards. Which this carried on for like a year, and then every now and then throughout 2018 it would pop its head back out, so it was an ongoing thing, and I haven't had it happen as much recently, but it's this weird thing that I had happen in my dreams where I would basically encounter demons and ghosts, and I would wake up screaming. Very strange, and I never had this until I had the experience with the paranormal. And of course, I'm more open to these things now. I understand presences a lot better than I did back then. I recognize things, and I communicate rather than become pugilistic about it. And sometimes I do have to get pretty aggressive about it too. This might not make any sense whatsoever, but I'm hoping that there's someone else who's out there who might be able to relate. So now you have a good context and understanding of the kind of mindset that I really was in at that particular time of the inception of this song. So one day, I'm very good with dates, but I can't remember the exact date. I think it was still towards the end of Aries season, so maybe April, I'm going to say, I don't know, 15th, 16th, something like that. So midway through April, let's say. Maybe a little bit later. I woke up one day, and by complete instinct, now I don't know what even my thinking was. I didn't think about it. By complete instinct, I woke up, and I used to go to sleep really late and wake up late. So this was like maybe early hours of the afternoon, or maybe just before that. I got up, and straight away, for some reason, without even going downstairs to eat breakfast or do anything, I closed the door so that my partner wouldn't come back into the room, and that no one else would come in. And I put a towel underneath the door. And this is something that I have actually done since childhood. I always like to put a towel underneath doors, and the reason for this is to energetically protect myself, not myself so much, but my environment from the outside world, because my energy is precious, and when it becomes free flowing in an environment, then I don't want any distractions or any outside influence in there. This is the part of the reason why I only sleep with my phone on flight mode. I don't normally, I want the world to fuck off sometimes, and I think I'm pretty good at keeping it out sometimes too. So yeah, I did that, and then I put on some incense. I believe, I think it was either patchouli or frankincense, but it's a high possibility that it was also the combination of both. I can't remember exactly which, but it was one of those. I had the sticks for it, and then at the time, I had the Trivax hoodie, which I used to wear live. This hoodie was essentially, it was a cloth that I think it either belonged to my mother or my mother gifted it to me, and I never wore this thing for whatever reason. And then during an LSD trip in 2014, I realized that was my stage gear with Trivax, and until that point I never wore any hoodies, and then I saw that, and then I started drawing some symbols on it, and then it became what I would then wear on stage live for the next I think 3 or 4 years. After that, I think I was using that thing for a while until maybe 2017, I would say. That sounds right to me, and I still have it here somewhere. There's still some old congealed blood from way back on there, and it's I put that thing on. I had the incense, and I plugged my guitar in, and somehow, by some fucking miracle, 30 minutes later, I had a full 9-minute song. How the fuck do you expect that? You know, how do you explain that even happens? Right? You want to talk about channeling? There you go. 9 fucking minutes of material that doesn't sound like anything else I've ever written in my life. And it's just poured out of me. I woke up and I wrote the song. I didn't talk to anyone. I didn't check my phone. I didn't check Facebook or anything. I just wanted the world to fuck off. You know, I closed the windows. I didn't want no energy coming into my space, and I just fucking that song came out of me. You know, and there's multiple layers here now, right? I think so. Just for a little bit of a technical reference as well, the way I would normally write a song, and this is maybe not as relevant, but I'm just putting it out there anyway. But I would, I think I would play the song as a bit of a demo, and then what I would do, the easiest way for me to do this was to sort of map out the riffs and the drum beats on this other program called Guitar Pro, which is super like amateur. No one uses this probably except me. And this is, I'm not even using the modern versions. I'm using the old ones that sound like ass. And but it's like, for some reason, for me, it always worked. It was a good way to make demos, purely because it's really, really easy to make drums on that if you know how to do it. Very, very easy and quick. So I would make the skeleton of the song whilst on the other hand listening to my own riffing on another program where I could actually hear distorted guitars through my ears, of course, right? So that's kind of how I did it. And then after the song was done, after half an hour, then I would export the drum tracks from the Guitar Pro version. I would take the MIDI files. For anyone who knows what that is, it's basically like, it's the skeleton of the notes, and you can apply that to any program. And then I would drop that in to Cubase, which is like, it's Pro Tools but for Windows. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone, but yeah, I would drop it in there, and then I would record the riffs the way that I just demoed them before writing them down on top of the drums. So by this point, the song was already finished, and it was just a case of demoing it straight away after I was finished writing it. Right? So here we are. Yeah, so I think when I first started writing the song, it was just a case of I plugged the guitar in, and then I started writing and writing and writing and writing, and I didn't think about it at all. I mean, it still blows my mind how quickly I even did that. But when I say I did that, I almost feel uncomfortable because I feel like that's not the entire truth. Yes, and the most interesting part, obviously, was the middle harmony section. Because, see, I just changed the lights of the room as I did that. Yeah. Basically, what happened was, I think I got to that middle point and I was like, okay, I think I've had enough riffs. And maybe I thought that the song could end there. Maybe I thought, no, fuck it, let's just continue. But then I was like, again, there wasn't a lot of thinking involved. I just started playing that lead as it is. And there it was. And then, it's very interesting because when I would play that harmony part in the middle, initially I wrote the lead, and then when the full backing band would kick in, the guitar that would come in would actually be playing the root note. So the lead guitar actually starts on the harmony on its own. So I will explain this in a moment much more clearly, but it was a very strange thing that happened there. Because after I created that harmony section, I mean, I instantly knew. I was like, oh God, here we are. We were onto something now. Something is happening here. Um, I've had this experience before where, on a spiritual level at least, where if I closed my eyes, I could still see things, like a hallucination of some form, some form, but not quite. It's not a hallucination as in it's made up, but rather there's something else going on there. I had this, of course, as I mentioned before, in the paranormal flat where there was something stood there, and whenever I closed my eyes, I could still see a face staring right at me. And this was the other time where I can very vividly recall having that experience. And here we are. I'm listening to the harmony that's in that part. I'm listening back to it without thinking. I think I was just like stood up the entire time next to this desk I had. Um, it wasn't even a desk. It was just at the corner of the room, and I had my laptop on top of what do you call it? On top of this chest of drawers, and I closed my eyes when listening to the harmony, and all I can see is a serpent. I can see a snake surrounded by fire, staring directly at me. And I can almost remember it very well because it was a different color. It was like, yes, it was the shape of a cobra, but it was looking at me. And I think whatever that was, it gifted me the song. Or perhaps it was my way of reaching it. Her, I should say. And I don't really know what was happening, whilst at the same time I kind of know what was happening. In fact, I do know very well what was happening. It's just really hard to describe it. So the best I can tell you is describe the event for as close as it can get to a physical manifestation. Um, yeah, yeah, I remember like opening my eyes back up after a while, closing again, and then I can still see at the center of my closed eye vision in the darkness. There's something here, looking back. And it wasn't a negative feeling. There was a actually no. There was the negative and positive aspect of this emotional. I mean, my emotional response to that would almost be, I think, irrelevant. But just to give you a sort of an idea of why, or like what I felt at the time. There was a sense of absolute terror, actually, but this was met with a sense of power. There's a feeling of I'm connecting to something here. There's something great and ancient is bestowing its gaze upon me. And one half of me is wanting to run away, and the other half of me is accepting that thing because the events in my life and how I felt at the time, that was just the thing I strongly needed to embrace. That energy that I can't quite describe. It's something you feel here in your heart. There's a sense of, yes, I guess it's a sense of darkness, but it's more than that. There's a sense of power. And this is why I called the song The Serpent's Gaze. Now, do you want to know something very interesting? So that's obviously just the creation of the song itself, but I happen to have a physical souvenir from this song, which I will show you in a moment. After I've finished recording and creating this song, and I came back to, I guess, my human self, if you will, whatever that was, just a bit more normal, I guess. I was in a very strange mood. I was in a really, really weird mood, as you can expect. And it was time for me to face the day, basically, after having just written that song. That I, even though it didn't sound like anything else Trivax has ever done, I knew it was going to be a Trivax song, like, from the moment it came out. And yeah, I then went out and I went downstairs and I saw people and things, and it's so strange that I even think about it. Basically, long story short, me and my partner ended up going to the woods because we used to live really close to the woods there. It's actually a really nice area too. Shame I couldn't appreciate it as much back there when I was there, but we went out. You gotta think, I was quite out of shape at this time too, mentally and physically. And we went on I went on a bike ride, and just on the dirt roads amongst the woods that have been paved. Nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary. And I wasn't exactly, even though I was out of shape, I wasn't the shittiest bike rider. I wasn't great, but, it was fine. And then all of a sudden, about like 10 minutes in, and I'm still in a really weird mood, like I'm filled with this sort of buried rage that I can't describe. And this is like an aftermath of recording the song. Even though it's a feeling of satisfaction, there's this feeling of like, fuck, I just want to push the world away. And that's a feeling I feel like I've had it most of my life anyway. It just comes and goes in doses. But anyway, whilst I'm on the bike, and this is quite a funny and ridiculous fucking thing that happened actually, like if someone told me this now, I would laugh at the tale. But what happened was, I'm on the fucking bike, and there's obviously like bits of gravel and shit, and a bee, a fucking bee gets in my face. Out of nowhere, it was like one of them weird universal things where it's just like I'm riding the bike, going through the woods, trying to get some fucking fresh air in before I decide I was gonna fucking burn myself on the world. And then this fucking bee comes in my face. And at first, I was like, fuck off. But then I ended up losing my balance, and I fell really hard into the ground, and my hand went into the gravel. And then I get up and I look at my hand, and it's not the first time I've looked inside my own flesh, but I look at my hand and there's literally my palm is folded like a sliced salmon, and there's blood coming out, and it's all covered in dirt and shit. And I was like, okay, well, fuck you. So yeah, and then my partner like found me like a minute later, and then I'm there getting up, and I was obviously very, very fat at the time too, so that hurt extra. And then I just got up, and I felt so angry at the world and the universe. I just started fucking screaming, I actually started screaming fuck off to the air, to the ether, even though I don't know if that was necessary, but it was just like something I'd met with something there, and I'd still had many lessons to learn. But the reason why I bring that up, which you will see in a moment, Yeah, first of all, the experience of the injury was extremely horrific. I've had some pretty bad injuries throughout my time, but I think this was like really, really uncomfortable. It was the most uncomfortable injury I've had, purely because of the dirt and the fucking gravel that was in my hand. They had to inject it with shit to make it come out. And honestly, having the palm of your hand injected whilst it's literally been cut open is the most uncomfortable sensation I could ever imagine. Like, you may as well put a toothpick underneath your toenail and kick the wall. Like, it was very bad. It was just really uncomfortable. So that happened, and then funnily enough, I had to have my hand in bandage, and then I couldn't actually play guitar for a few days, which was really weird. I've just written this song, and now all of a sudden I can't play guitar anymore. Now, of course, that wound healed, right? And yeah, I of course was eventually able to play guitar again. I've played way more shows in my life since that happened than I did before. So no problem. Yep. But it left a souvenir, as I said, which is on the palm of this hand. Now I don't know how well you can see that, but let me just bring this a little bit closer to the camera. I'm hoping I can catch it with the lighting, but this is very special. Look at this. You see that? Now, this is of course for everyone who is watching the video, but if you're just listening to this on the platforms, what I can describe is that there's a line that goes across the bottom part of my thumb, which, well, it looks like a serpent's eye. And I tell you what, there are various other lines around this, so I'm just gonna make this a lot easier for you. For those watching the video, check this out. Do you fucking see that? And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the serpent's gaze, right? The universe, whatever you want to call it, gifted me with this beautiful song, with this powerful, powerful fucking piece of music, and I simply had to physically pay the price for it. And I understand this. Look, I get that sacrifice is necessary throughout life. Sometimes it just has to be done. Unfortunately, for better or worse, maybe it's fortunately, but sometimes for our world to function and for it to survive, sometimes you have to pay with currencies. If not, in fact, not sometimes, all the times. Every single thing that we do, you have to pay for it in some kind of currency. Now, a lot of us only recognize money as a currency or like monetary exchanges, but that's not everything. You can buy things in this universe that you don't buy them with money, and you don't necessarily even buy them from people, right? You can communicate with this world and it will respond back in more direct ways than anything else that's out there, if you ask me. And I am truly a believer of this because I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it happen to other people. I've seen it happen to myself way too many times to turn a blind eye to it. And this is the thing, that I am happy. Like, I accepted that this happened. This little moment of physical pain was purely just me paying a very fair and reasonable price for the act of bringing this song into the world from the other side. Because that's what happened. The song's a gift, right? our intelligence is there's theories that intelligence is external and that our brains are simply just antennas and vessels of a greater cosmic intelligence. And I recognize the fact that this song is something that came from the other side, from that side. And whatever the source of it is, ooh. Oh man, yeah, that's a powerful thing. That's a powerful thing. That thing that was looking at me, I look at it back as I finally released this song and put it out into the world, and I'm humbled, and I am I feel full of, there's a sense of respect that I have for the art and the channeling of it, where it comes from, what it's meant to do, what it's meant to do to, I guess, other human beings, because if this is the thing, if this is where that came from, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there because now the magic is in the song itself. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story of the Serpent's Gaze. Yeah, and of course, as far as the lyrical themes of the song go as well, of course there are many different deities you could relate the serpent to, but because of how personal that experience was, I would rather just refer to it for what it is, if that makes sense. Obviously, there's many references to Medusa as well. Is of a serpentine kind of a being, and then there's the stare, and obviously throughout the lyrics of the song, you will notice that it's progressively building up and building up and building up, and then the very last thing that gets said in the song is, "Now she gazes into your soul," and that's where the harmony comes in. So it's all very deliberately created. And you know what? The thing that I'd like to now get into is that I'd like to explain the harmony a bit better to you guys, and perhaps put some food for thought out there. And I'm also going to try something that I haven't done on any other episodes of the podcast, so let's see. By the way, the fact that I am able to do a podcast of this format is a real great testament to high-level schizophrenia. I'm joking, of course. Maybe I'm not. So, as you can see here, so what I was doing was, I'll just play you the actual harmony just so you can hear what it is like, because there's something very peculiar just about the timing of it and the point in which it decides to end and then repeat itself. So this is how it obviously goes. So, obviously, and that's the harmony, that it starts on its own like that, but then when the guitar part or the full band kicks in, the other guitar part will be playing. So if you play them both together, Right. So obviously that's that. But there's something very weird about this. Usually in music, and this was completely unintentional how it ended up being the way that it is, which I think is so appropriate for what the song actually is conveying, I suppose, or rather the codes in which it is unlocking within the human psyche as well as the air of the universe. Because music and vibrations, they can have very profound effects, and they can actually open portals to other dimensions. And I feel this song does that. At least for me, it does. I think it does do that. Yeah, fuck yeah. So, I think of it is a lot of times in the mathematics of music, we go in fours and eights. Even if the song, well, this song is actually in a 6/4 time signature, but generally speaking, there's a certain degree of mathematics involved when it comes to writing music. Everything lands in fours and eights and, 16s and so on. But this one, it doesn't do the full thing. It ends prematurely, but then repeats itself. But when it repeats itself, it makes perfect sense. And somehow this conveys the serpentine sort of, I guess, swirling and the coiling much better. So I can count it for you, and this perhaps might make more sense. So goes 1. Right. I'll have to figure this out for a moment. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6, not 8. And I don't know if that might make a lot of sense to some of you out there, but for the musicians especially, the motherfucker is in 6. It's not 8. So you've got 6 bars that keep going in loops over and over and over again. And again, I don't know if this might make a lot of sense, but that is extremely unusual in music. But the way in which it sounds, it makes perfect sense. Like there's no other way you could imagine that to go. Which is why, again, I believe that the motherfucker is a gift from the other side. So, I mean, I can even play the rhythm. That this might make sense too. It goes like, well, there isn't a rhythm, but if there was, it would be like this. Yeah. So that's the song, man. Very strange. Very strange. But yeah, just thought I would share that with you guys. And I know usually in art, it's sort of forbidden to kind of dissect things in such a way. But really, I feel like there's a lot of very powerful elements in this one that are worth sharing. And I think, or at least I do really hope that when it comes to listening to the song after having heard what I have to share here, then perhaps this will give you more of an understanding of at least where I stood as the artist when the song got channeled through me, right? And that's a whole other story of its own, because now that it's out there, it's no longer my experience that counts. I think that the whole point of it is that what gets, that there's this sort of a well of experiences of every other person who will then now get exposed to this. It will all go there. And maybe perhaps this is better. It should be best if I don't talk so much about this part and just let it do the work. But all I'm saying is that this is my side of it. Like, I almost, even though I'm the only person that fucking wrote the thing, I almost can't even say that it was just me who wrote it. It was gifted to me. And whatever it was, this is how it came out. And I hope that you guys will enjoy it. And more importantly, I hope that you will take away the experiences from listening to this song that you were meant to, just like I was meant to write it and be the physical creator of it. I hope that whatever it was meant to be, I feel that I did my part. And I feel like I did maybe even a little bit extra by sharing this with you all here. I say that just as my timer turned 45. And I now hope that it will do what it needs to do. So, with that in mind, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all ever so much for listening to this episode, and I hope you made it through my insane ramblings safely. Or perhaps, if not safe, then at least content and with an open heart, and that you took something away from it. I wanted to say thank you to all of you, truly from the bottom of all of our hearts, for supporting Trivax, for also supporting Iblis manifestations. I really enjoy doing this, and this is probably the only time I will do anything that's like this episode. So again, that's its own thing, and to everyone for being a part of this crazy journey that we do through this version of the universe. So, with that in mind, at the very end of this podcast, I will include the song in its entirety, and you guys can listen to it, and I'll let you take it in. So, yeah, thank you all very much for your support, and I hope that you will enjoy the Serpent's Gaze. I will see you guys on the next episode of Iblis Manifestations. And now, she stares into your soul.